Okay, I think we're live, which is all good. So I'm just going to wait to do a quick Facebook check, make sure that the red ring has appeared, which it has. So that's also good. So it kind of means we're away. So welcome to what day is it? Monday. It's Monday today. Just going to turn the sound off on my phone because that is quite annoying. Monday, and it is the 14th of April. So welcome to this live stream, Chen Chat podcast, which is cool. So hopefully you guys have been following us on social media. We're trying to do it more in terms of more podcasts, more things. Lots of people are asking for more content, so we're reacting basically to the ask in the way that we can. So we're going to try and get some more things out of the door. Obviously, memes are kind of good, but I get bored looking at memes basically. So we tried to offer a bit more content that's more interesting, hopefully more interesting to more people, things that you can actually do, meditations that you can do. And again, there's lots of things on our website. There's free meditations on there that you can download that have got sound behind them, which was kindly done by Andy Ross, one of our good friends. So there's quite a few places to go from kind of a content perspective for everyone that's asking whereabouts we post things to, and can we be on Twitter, and can we do this, and can we do that. So there's also lots of asks. Ultimately, there's a very small team at this end, really, which tends to be myself. Michael Santos will laugh because we've got Jane downstairs. On one of the chats we had, I was talking about Jane from downstairs. So it's kind of a bit of a running joke now that we say it's Jane downstairs, basically. And then, of course, we've got Vanessa working diligently behind the scenes. So she does a lot of things for us in terms of social media, sending things out, and kind of works with Jane effectively. And then my son Ollie also does IT. So he does all our IT back end, all the technical stuff that seems to continually need to be looked after, websites and such like, which is always the way in this kind of IT age. And then Brian, he also does some of the pendants, the resin, that type of stuff, along with Vanessa. So we've got kind of a few people behind the scenes doing things, but we've no means got like a massive team. And quite often we do get emails in which make me laugh and say, can your team do this or do that? And we sort of tend to smile at ourselves and think the perception is that we've got an office full to brim of people, but ultimately there's a few of us trying to do a lot of things. So we tried in the best way that we can. And obviously on the back end of things, we've got Chen in the background, also kind of watching and listening in terms of what's going on and how we're doing things and what needs to be done. So he's kind of directing us from a spiritual perspective, really, to make sure that we engage with people and we help people in the way that we're set up to do. Because, I mean, sometimes it's kind of easy to forget that that's what we're actually here for. We're here to help people, and that's kind of what we want to do, is help people that've got problems. And also we want to kind of disseminate our knowledge, I guess, the knowledge that we've sort of built up over the years, 20 years of knowledge about how things work and what we do and how we do things. And we want that kind of knowledge to be disseminated out to more people so that more people can use the same ideas, techniques, that type of thing to work with their own clients. And obviously, the Spirit Release Academy is the same concept. Myself and Jono are obviously working with that, with an idea to train as many practitioners as we humanly can, as fast as we can, so that more people are equipped with the skills they need to work in this type of area around protection, clearing people, and bringing clients back into a sovereign state, basically. So I'm just going to say hi to Nadine. Thanks for joining. Hi, Jane, Andy, and the team. The team, it's a small team. There's a few of us, but they know who they are. And they work very hard behind the scenes. So thanks to Ollie, Brian, Vanessa for sort of... and there is Vanessa, actually. Hi to Vanessa. You should be working. You haven't got time to be on here watching me on Facebook. You've got things to do. Which is quite funny. Vanessa popped in this morning, actually, to have a chat and go through a few things, have a coffee. And Jane downstairs is always watching, as you can see. She's popped in to say hi. Tesla Fries also popping in by the look of it. So hi, Tesla, you're coming in from YouTube, which is cool. I think this is the thing as well. I think one of the things that I've kind of started to understand is the social media area or arena is quite big, and lots of people have their favorite places they like to do things. So again, we used to really concentrate on Facebook because we figured everyone was on Facebook, but it turns out there's a lot more people on Instagram and there's a lot more people on YouTube that are absorbing content. So when we do Chen chats, that type of thing, we tend to try and disseminate them now onto Facebook and onto YouTube, and they're on the website generally. So we've got a few places that you can kind of pick things up. and listen to Chen. And obviously Chen's Chen, you know, he's got his kind of personality. He's got lots of people that quite like to follow him. And again, we are aware that the demand for his content is kind of growing, really. So we're trying to kind of embrace that and obviously react in a way that we can provide you guys that are following us more of that content from Chen. I was going to say hi to Sarah Barfield. Sarah we know quite well, so hi, thanks for joining. And Mimi, which is cool. Obviously Tesla Fry. So it's good to see some of your faces, some of your names. So from our perspective this week, so we tend to have a theme basically. So every week we're going to come up with a theme. Hi to Matsumi as well. Thanks for joining. Good morning. Although it's an afternoon here now, it's morning for you probably, because I think you're probably in Singapore or somewhere. But UK it's afternoon, so we've been busy. So the concept being for these podcasts, we basically pick a theme on a weekly basis, and that theme we're going to kind of try and run with for the week. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we were working with the death and dying theme. Chen wanted to talk about death in a positive way and explain when people die, what happens, and how the spirit transitions back to spirit effectively from the person that's dying, and how that kind of impacts the family, how people in a family when someone's either just died or is dying, you know, can start to maybe think about things in a slightly different way and see it maybe as a positive thing as opposed to a negative thing. So this week we're going to talk about children. So the idea being that lots of people have children. We've all, of course, been children to our parents at some point. If we're physical and we're watching this, we'll definitely have been children. And at the moment, there's obviously lots happening in the world from a political aspect, social aspect, cultural aspect. All of these things are overlaid onto society, I guess, and they're overlaid onto our children. So our children are watching things, they're consuming media, even though we don't know. And I think in the old days, if we rewind to my kind of childhood, obviously there was no internet. Though, you know, my parents didn't really have a big problem in controlling us, other than us being out in the field, running around with air rifles and doing things we probably shouldn't have been doing that we didn't want our parents to know about particularly. But effectively, you know, the parents in the old world didn't really have a huge amount of control over what you did when you were outside the house. But obviously when you came home, then you were kind of managed, if you like, to a certain degree, because they knew what you were watching and what you were doing. Whereas these days, our children are sort of on social media. Most children over the age of maybe early years, 7, 8, 9, have got devices, whether that's phones or tablets and things that they're using, maybe for school, but maybe using it from a personal perspective. So children very young are actually having access to the internet and to games and to social media, and of course to all of the good things that we can do on the internet. And, you know, there is a host of ideal things that people can use to learn, of course. But for children, what we can't do as parents very easily is monitor what they're assimilating. So when they're watching things, they're listening to people speak, they're watching cartoons, they're listening to words, there can be a whole raft of programming that's going on to the subconscious that we're not aware of as parents. And obviously this does bring that question as to where and how can we filter information that the children are picking up in a positive way. So I think from my perspective, if I had children now, obviously I'm like 56 or 57, so I don't think we've got any plans on that. But if I was to have children now, I think it would be quite a interesting conversation about how we can control the media that they watch. Because obviously from a spiritual perspective, we know that the subconscious mind picks up everything that we do and say. And when we watch TV, none of us know what we're being programmed with, really. We know that we get lots of adverts and advertising around the images that we see and the products that companies want to sell. But I think we're also aware that from a technical perspective, when we think about watching TV, you know, most TVs run at kind of like 50 hertz or something, 50 frames a second, or they're about 50, 60 frames a second. So in 1 second, there are 60 still images put together that makes that frame move. So when we watch things, if someone was to put things inside those frames, so if every 10 frames there was a picture that said something like drink Coca-Cola, we wouldn't even see it from a conscious perspective when we watch a film or when we watch an advert. But of course, the subconscious would see it. And if that frame comes up often enough, it's programming our subconscious. So we think about our children, how they're being exposed to advertising and when they're watching films and cartoons. None of us really know what are in these films and cartoons and the things that and the movies that they watch and they assimilate. because of course we're not involved in the making process, therefore we don't know what is being involved and what's being put in. So we start to think about things from a spiritual perspective in a slightly different way, really, in terms of how and what we allow our children to consume, because it's going to program them in different ways. And of course we want them programmed, not that we program our children, but we want them programmed in a positive way. We want them to understand things in a positive way. We want them to kind of use their parents as a role model. And if you work and live with trust and integrity in your own space, then effectively, of course, that's the way the children will start to see and watch what you do and how you do things. And that is a type of programming as well, because of course children tend to follow their parents. So us leading by example is obviously the best way that we can provide a kind of platform for our children to learn and to choose the choices they make from. So I'm just going to say hi to Geraldine, who's popped in. Good to see you on here, Geraldine, and Mimi. Late, that's okay, late's fine, Californian time. We're all on different time zones. This is the thing, Mimi, I guess. So late for you could be early for someone else. I know for Matsumi, I think she's in Singapore, so it's probably very early there. So, but this is the whole point of these things, really. We can do these things on catch up as well. So once we've done these chats, they are available on Facebook and they're available on our YouTube channel to catch up if you need to, which is always handy. And sometimes we need to watch things a couple of times to assimilate the information and to actually listen to what gets said. So I think that's how things are, really, from kind of my perspective, certainly from talking about children and how we do things with children. So let's get Chen in for his chat, because obviously he's got his ideas on what we should do or how we could do things in a positive way to kind of work with our children, help support anyone that has young children and children that are growing. And of course, adolescent children, teenagers generally become fun when you're living with them, because they're starting to assert their kind of mature authority, I guess. So any of you guys that are living with teenagers, you've got my empathy, because we've all been there, and it can be a bit of a tricky task at times, because effectively on the one hand, whilst you're trying to kind of mould and shape the family environment and the kind of the roles, if you like, teenagers are pushing back against boundaries and looking to kind of move themselves from childhood, adolescence to adults effectively. And of course, to do that, they do need to push boundaries, and they do need to become what we would see as difficult, I guess, to a certain degree. So hi, Jules, good to see you. And Catherine, thanks for joining. So with that in mind, so 12 minutes, I've been rambling for 12 minutes. Let's talk to Chen, see what he has to say. So we're talking about children, basically, for newcomers, people that have just joined. Children in spirituality, how we can teach our children to not understand spirituality, because it's difficult enough to understand if you're an adult, to be fair, let alone a child. But what we can do is probably find some techniques and some ideas that we can start to talk to our children about and kind of bring spiritual teachings and techniques that are positive into an understanding that they have. And that, of course, will give them a skill set then they can start to use to protect their own energy and to think about themselves being protected. Because I think we've all been in places where, you know, we've been frightened at night, or we've been in bedrooms and it's been dark and we want the light on to be able to see. And small children obviously do suffer with some of those things, because, you know, when you're living on your own and you're kind of moved into your own bedroom, at some point as a young child, you have to find that kind of internal security, and people don't like the dark. You know, children find themselves quite afraid of the dark generally at night. So leaving lights on, leaving music playing, things like that can reassure, kind of nurture that different space to go to sleep in. Because of course, from our perspective, if children go to sleep in a fearful state, then they're going to attract negativity into that space. And obviously it's not great for them from a dream state and from a kind of rest and recuperation perspective either. So let's see what Chen has to say. So I'm going to set an alarm for him a second. Just bear with me a tick. So Chen spends his life now having alarms set to remind him when he's finished doing things. And so do I. That's my life as well. Basically, alarms for everything. Okay, so let's hand over to Chen. Oh, take my watch off. First message that comes through, watch off. So we'll do that. Doesn't like the watch on. And I will catch you guys in a moment. Good day to all. Thank you very much for providing your presence, and for those people, of course, that view this in catch-up mode, because we are very aware, as young Andrew has been saying, that from a social media perspective, lots of people have different restraints and constraints on their time. And of course, being able to watch this type of information when the time prevails for yourself is a very important utility to be able to do. So we're making sure that all of the content and information that we provide is available to you when it works for you to listen to. And this, I think, is a very important thing to cover. So young Andrew has set the scene, I think, and framed the picture for this particular week's podcast. That what we're quite keen to do is to think about our children, those people that have young children, those people that have older children. Anyone that has a family will have children somewhere, more than likely, in their extended family network, whether they be nieces and nephews. So everyone's coming into contact with children. And even, of course, if you don't have children yourself, you will still speak to children. You will still engage with children in different places. So thinking about how you engage, how you connect, and your energy connection to those children is something that we need to consider. So I think from my perspective, obviously one of the things that doesn't really happen in the spiritual arena particularly, so many people are becoming spiritual, becoming turned on, as they say, or moving on to their spiritual path, or they're becoming spiritually activated. So the spiritual world, if you like, is becoming more open to people, and people are becoming more aware that there is this spiritual vibration, this spiritual space. And in that spiritual space, there are different energies and entities like myself, Chen, that exist. And we do interact, and we can interact with living people. So everyone that has a physical human body has a spiritual essence locked inside the physical body, and you're living your human life. And of course, this overlays with children too. So when children start to grow up, when they're, of course, first born, they're very connected to the mother's energy and to that energy center. And then as they start to develop, of course, they are still locked into that spiritual vibration. So young children, 1, 2, 3 years old, probably can still see spirit. They can see grandparents around them. They can see spirit animals. They can see many things. And this is what you see as parents and adults. You'll see children talking to themselves, apparently. You'll see children in their room talking about virtual friends that they have in the room that they can speak to and speak back. And of course, generally what happens is the parents disassociate from this concept and educate the children that there's no one really there, that virtual friend isn't real. And then, of course, as children grow up, they go to school, the whole schooling system and the programming system starts. And of course, the connection to spirit is disconnected. So most children, even if they're able to see and speak to other spiritual energies using telepathy when they're young, the schooling system will generally disconnect that. And then, of course, many of you will remember that you used to have playful virtual friends, or your parents will tell you you used to have a virtual friend when you were younger. And then, of course, that stopped as you became schooled, if you like. So the actual method of going to school, being with other people, wanting to be the same and liked, obviously comes into play. So if we think about young children, trying to teach some spiritual techniques like meditation, of course, is not applicable. But as children start to grow and get older at different ages, they do understand. In fact, they're more connected to spirit, really, or they're more connectable to spiritual energies because, of course, their etheric field hasn't really been perforated in any way. So most small children haven't done drugs, haven't done substance, they haven't taken very strong pharmaceutical medications and drugs that will have perforated their etheric field. So they're inside this nice protected bubble of light, and that gives them their spiritual protection. And of course, when they're inside that bubble of light, this is a good place for them to be. It's the place they should be. It pushes back negativity completely, really, and obviously lets that child start to grow and develop in a protected space from a physical and, of course, a spiritual protection perspective. As they grow older, of course. So children, by the time they get to 6, 7 years old, They understand a lot more about themselves than probably the parents realise. And from these sorts of ages, this is where we can start to play games with children. We can start to tell them to visualise themselves in a bubble of light. We can start to write things down and make things gamified and fun. So draw themselves inside a bubble of light and tell them that they push the bubble around, and wherever they're walking down the road, they're rolling around and there's this bubble that's with them continually that pushes back negativity. So we can start to bring some of the ideas and the concepts and techniques from a spiritual perspective into the child's conscious awareness. And we don't need to put them into a space of fear. And this, of course, is very important. We don't want children being fearful of anything. And this, of course, is one of the problems, that when children watch media and they watch the movies and they watch cartoons, just about every cartoon will have a villain. It has a negative either person or negative character that's being animated. And of course, that negative character is generally chasing people, or they're trying to run away from it. The same theme really plays out. And if you think about lots of the cartoons that you grew up with as adults now, you'll see that there's a layer of programming that was happening in those cartoons. And there was always a villain, there was always someone chasing that person around, and there was always this fear-based programming happening. So you'd be worried about the people or the characters in the cartoon getting away from the villain. And of course, then you fast forward into more modern movies, you've got the same types of things. You look at the Batman characters, then of course Batman's here to save the world and protect the world from all of the negative other characters. All of these different animations and films and movies all work on the same theme, because what they actually do, of course, is create fear behind the scenes. And we don't want children being fearful of anything. So trying to look at the content that they're actually assimilating into their subconscious mind, as young Andrew says, is very important, because if they start to become fearful that things attack them at night, or things come out of the wardrobe at night, let's think about the Monsters, Inc. movie and cartoons. The concept that monsters exist, and then when children go to bed, the monsters come through the wall, or they come out of the wardrobe into the room, and then they try to make the child jump or scare the child while they sleep. I mean, the actual concept is very easy for adults to see that this is a very negative programming type of cartoon, because what you're doing is you're saying to children that when they go to sleep, there might be things in the wardrobe that are going to pop out and scare them. And that is going to affect their subconscious. And of course, these cartoons and animations are very cleverly made, because they're done in such a way that adults don't really see exactly what's happening. They see it as a fun thing. And of course, many of you as parents have probably told your children, don't worry, it's not like Monsters, Inc., as they've watched the Monsters, Inc. films and the Monsters, Inc. movies. That's not what happens. But of course, the reality is, for children, it probably does happen. Because if children are open spiritually, they will see other things in the room. They may see other energies coming in and out of the space in the same way that animals do. Any of you that have dogs and cats that live in the house with you will notice quite often, especially cats, will look at a door, or they'll look at a window and they'll stare at something. They may even back away from a window or a door, and dogs do the same. As spirit walk into a room, dogs will immediately see and feel the vibration change, and they will be able to see, because of course dogs and cats have a wider range from a sensory perspective. And this, of course, we know that dogs can smell things much better than humans, and dogs are used to find things, because you have sniffer dogs that can smell and are taught to smell in different ways. So other animals are very perceptive about things that are happening from a spiritual perspective. And we need to think about the same concept with our children. We need to think about what they're watching and how that might be programming them in a negative way. But going to bed at night should be a very protected feeling. Everyone probably can remember when you were young. Many of you will know that when you went to bed at night, you were fearful of the dark, because you can't see. Humans are designed to see during the day. That's how your eyes are designed. That's how your genetics are constructed But at night you can't see, and things that you can't see create fear, and you become fearful of. So leaving lights on, or a small light on in a children's room, is a good idea, because of course children can then see. So that takes away a lot of the fear that would be there if that room was completely pitch black and the child was effectively shut in. Leaving the door slightly open also allows the subconscious of the child to understand that the door is partly open. The parents can probably hear if the child needs something, or feels fearful at any point during the night, then the door is open, so that the parents will be able to hear. So there are two different things there, light and sound, and both of those things come into a child's perspective. And then of course we can give children all sorts of cuddly toys and things that we say, this is your protective teddy bear or protective bunny or doll or something. So we can put them to bed with something that they associate as being a protective thing that's positive, so that when they go to sleep they can cuddle their teddy bear or their dog or their doll, and they will start to form a bond. And of course it starts to cement the subconscious concept in their mind that when they're sleeping, there's something in bed with them. It's not the parents, it's not anyone else, but there's something in bed with them that's positive. And of course, we, from a spiritual perspective now, can start to align ideas with the children. So you go to bed at night, you put yourself in that protective bubble that we talk about, and we can draw that protective bubble, and we can get the children drawing the bubble and colouring it in with rainbow colours and those sorts of things. We can then talk about when that child goes to bed and has something with them, like a small teddy bear or a doll or something. So that teddy bear or doll is your spirit guide. It's connected to a spiritual protector. And we, of course, as parents, can invoke that connection. So we can put the thought out to our own spiritual team that we would like our guides connecting to that particular animal or teddy bear or doll when the child goes to sleep, to perform a layer of protection. So your guides are with children, and children, of course, have their own spirit guides, but those spirit guides aren't going to actually do anything from a protective perspective to make the night a safe time for children unless someone activates that connection. So you, as the parent, thinking about asking that child's guide to protect them while they sleep is obviously a good thing. Now, obviously, from a religious perspective, in the past, people used prayer. So people would use prayer, and they would say different types of prayers to either invoke different spiritual protection or different deities. So the same concept, you as a family can come up with your own prayer, your own very simple words for small children. When I go to sleep, I call upon my spiritual helpers to guide and protect me. Very simple sentence, but does exactly what it says on the tin. It invokes spiritual protection and protective helpers to basically be in the space when that child's sleeping. So for children and people that have children that are having nightmares and having problems with sleep, you need to be thinking about where the cause of the problem is. Is it something that they've watched that's been lodged in their subconscious mind, or of course their conscious mind? They will tell you, I'm frightened of a witch, I'm frightened of this, I've seen a film and I'm frightened of that, or I've heard things and I'm frightened of these things. So sitting down by the bed and just engaging with children to let them know that they're in a nurtured, protected space, they're in their bedroom, they're in their house. You as parents control the space, you control the protection, they're inside their bubble of light, they're with nurtured dolls or teddy bears or something that are there they can hold and protect them. And of course, we can start to say to children as they get older, if you feel concerned or worried, just put a thought out to your own guide. Say, could my spirit guides help me? Could they protect me? Children as young as 6, 7 can have these thoughts and can have this understanding. And of course, if they grow up knowing how to do these things, it's a game changer really for them from a spiritual perspective, because the levels of fear that other children have to endure, they won't need to, because they know that when they go to bed, they're invoking spiritual protection. They have a light on, they have the door open, they have different techniques that can be used just to start to overlay the concepts of protection. And then, of course, we can do things as parents. We can sprinkle sea salt around the bedrooms to provide extra protection. We can use different pyramids and such like that, of course, we obviously create ourselves, but we can buy crystals and things that do those things too. So there's a whole host of things that you can do and employ and bring into the children's space to create that nurtured, protective energy whilst they're sleeping. And obviously thinking about this information they assimilate, it may seem controlling to some, but of course there are computer programs that you can install on their devices that provide a layer of protection. It stops them being able to do anything on the internet. We know that there's a lot of very negative adult content on the internet, and we also know that children get targeted, especially teenagers. Teenagers are looking to push the boundaries. They're looking to be naughty. They're looking to do things they shouldn't be doing. But of course, that's part of growing into adulthood. So again, having some type of mechanism for you to be able to filter or watch the information being assimilated into your teenagers is a good idea. And of course, if you look at lots of the problems that are happening in society, it's because there is this lack of control by parents. If we rewind 50, 60 years, spoke to grandparents, they would probably know everything their children were doing. They probably knew every friend that child had. Most people lived in probably quite small places and knew everyone in the towns or villages they lived in. So there wasn't the requirement to have quite as much control over your children. But these days, if you live in cities, there are thousands or millions of people living there. Your children go to school, they connect with all sorts of other people. You have no idea who their friends are. You have no idea what they're doing on a daily basis. And of course, the sorts of troubles they get into. And I think the biggest problem, really, from a children perspective, certainly from our perspective in spirit, is drugs. Drugs and substance obviously take children off their path very quickly because, of course, all humans are emotional beings, very reactive. So if you're given a drug that makes you feel amazing and feel wonderful, and you see that as being slightly naughty, then there are two things there. There's the appetite to be naughty, which of course everyone tends to have, and there's the feelings that you can get from taking these substances that you don't get in your normal day-to-day waking conscious awareness. And this of course becomes very addictive quite quickly, which takes children into that space whereby their etheric field will start to perforate, and that means that other things can connect to them, and then they start to have anxiety, depression, intrusive thoughts, intrusive feelings, that sort of thing. And when those sorts of things happen, that needs to be nipped in the bud as quickly as possible. So we need to get the etheric field back into a whole protected field, remove any perforations, disconnect anything that's attached or anything that's in the space, and give that child the opportunity to bring themselves back to a sovereign state. And of course, sovereignty checking, as we know, this is something that we developed quite a long time ago with young Andrew and, of course, Dr. Palmer. It was part of the testing that we did. We wanted to find a method that people could test their own spiritual sovereignty in a very quick way. And obviously the way to do that is to ask yourself 3 times, am I sovereign, yes or no? Am I sovereign, yes or no? Am I sovereign, yes or no? And your higher self in general will answer that question. And you should get 3 yeses. So 3 yeses confirms your energy is your own. And of course, we can teach this same test to children. So small children can start to ask themselves in their mind, am I sovereign, yes or no? And they should get yes, yes, yes. And of course, they will generally. But occasionally, if they get a no, it does then point to the fact that there's a problem. And a small child can then voice that to the parent and say, I was doing my sovereignty check the other day, which is such good fun, because we can make it a fun game to do this. And I received a no, which was the first time that I've had a no. And of course, the parents can think, okay, so something now connected to your field that's negative that we need to clear. And then, of course, parents can start to adapt and learn techniques to help to clear the children or teach the children the things that they can do to clear themselves. So these are very simple techniques. This doesn't need to be rocket science. We're not building anything particularly over scientific here. These are very, very simple spiritual techniques that children can be enhanced with from a very, very young age, and we can find good and fun ways to do this. And of course, if we look at the media, any of you people that are listening to this that are writers in one way or another, starting to write some of this down collectively for children, creating children's books and children's narrations and cartoons in a fun way is something that we could start to do. So we as a spiritual community, and as I move my hands, I mean we collectively, all of the people that we're engaging with, not just the people on this particular call, but effectively we as a community can actually start to do that. I think that's my time. Goodness. Very annoying, that phone, when it goes off. I'm always part of the way through the conversation too, of course. But you can see the general concept, basically, is that we need to start to create information in a way that children can assimilate it in a nice, fun way that doesn't create any fear at all. And we can move them into this positive place where they start to understand spiritual techniques and teachings from their parents, who of course also are learning and teaching themselves, but engaging in a very positive way. And this is a game changer for children that grow up that are not afraid of the dark, that know there are spiritual helpers that they can invoke and call on, are children that are going to be well ahead of the pack, because more and more children will find that they become depressed and anxious in that negative space because of the way that society is moving. So spiritual children will have a huge head start if they can start to work with their spirit guides and other spiritual energies, and they feel safe in themselves. They know they can speak to their parents about these virtual images that they see, virtual children, animals, spirit animals. We can move them into meditation quite young on. Meditation, of course, is very good to clear energy and clear your field, and we can do past life meditations, etc. But for small children, meditation is probably too advanced. But we can start to bring the concepts online to smaller children, and certainly to teenagers. Teenagers should be able to meditate for more than 5 or 6 minutes and start to clear their field and get connected to their spiritual guidance. And this would be a huge game changer for their mental health, and of course for their future, really, because they will actually be aligning themselves with the spiritual techniques and understandings of the planet. Because as we all know, if you want to change who you are, your life, how you feel, your abundance, all of these things, you need to manifest those things on the astral first, and then they're attracted into your physical space. So everything's starting with thought. Everything that happens on this planet starts with thought, and thought has to be the starting point. So spiritual people start to realize that the thoughts you're having, the thoughts you manifest, are basically going to align you with a certain type of lifestyle, life choices, and of course success in your life. And those people that are leading the field, I would say, in the spiritual realm, spend lots of their time manifesting things in their own mind before those things actually happen in reality. And this is what we need to get the children to understand, is that they can build things in their mind that will then be manifested in reality. And this is how we change the world together, holding hands collectively in a positive way. So I know that my time's up and I've overrun, so I will say good day to you all. Hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation, the content. Please drop some comments for me. I like to read the comments. I can read, not read myself. I have no eyes, of course, but when Andrew reads or Jane reads the comments, I can jump on their back effectively and listen to the thoughts. So when they read something, I get to read it. So if you have comments, please update them in the posts. And obviously, the more people that we can reach and the more people that we can share these types of information with, the better things are for us all as a collective. So I see us all as a big collective group of people, and we're all working together as one. We all work in different ways. We all say things differently. I speak differently to Bashar. As all of you know, we have many questions about Bashar that come in. In fact, someone asked the other day why I hold my hands like this. Is it for the same reason that Bashar does? And I think I joked and said I expect Bashar probably copied me. But of course, the reality, this creates a circuit. When we put our hands together, the energetics of the human body creates a circuit, so energy flows better. So this is why many people that channel put their hands together in different ways, because we're circuiting the energetics. And of course, that was covered last week. So I will say good day to all. It's been my pleasure to have this conversation. Obviously, young Andrew, I think, is going to take over, and I will look forward to speaking to you again next week. Good day. Oh. Hi, folks. Okay, so 39. He has run over. Of course he has. as you'd expect. Well, folks, I would say that I know what he talked about, but of course I've got no idea really. So there we were talking about children, the concepts of spiritual protection for and with children, how we're going to kind of do that, and how people that have got children can spend a bit of time just thinking about ideas that we can kind of educate them with. So I think Catherine is talking about children constantly in the meditation dream. Adults need to adjust their energy to match frequency. Yep, that's perfectly well said, Catherine. Catherine saying thanks to Chen. I can see that. I think Leela, thank you, Chen. I have young children. I'd love to teach these things. You could be the first one and doing the homework, Leela, really, because you could write the manual effectively that we can then disseminate to everybody else. So taking them to crystal shops was a great thing to do, and especially the baby. Yeah, perfect. Because of course that's the thing. Crystals vibrate at different frequencies. So when we put a crystal in the hands of our children, or put them in our school bags, or put them under the pillow, wherever you happen to put it, that crystal's vibrating at a frequency, and that's going to change their auric field because it comes into the auric field. I mean, this is why we, I wear my pendants, that we kind of make these pendants, and I've got kind of millions of them somewhere. But basically, I kind of pick a pendant every day that's got different crystals and things in, and I know that when I put that on, I can feel the energy for me just jump dramatically, because of course bringing that into my auric field expands the field to start with, and secondly provides a whole load of extra protection. So bringing crystals and these sorts of products into the space is obviously a good thing to do. Again, we make all sorts of things, pyramids here, you can see at the back. This one here, these sorts of things are great to put in children's rooms. Again, it's a organized pyramid basically. So it gives off a huge kind of vortex of energy that keeps the space clear, keeps negative things out of bounds. Sea salt around the room, of course, is good too. So Veronica's just saying it was her first listen. Well, hopefully you enjoyed it, Veronica. Thanks for coming, giving us your time, because we are all aware that these days there are about 10 million people on social media talking about 10 million different things, and trying to find some content that you actually like and it kind of aligns with you is quite difficult, really. I know that I spend my time hopping around things too. So when we're not actually doing this work from this perspective, I'm listening to different things, or things that I enjoy and kind of want to listen to. But also the bandwidth is so wide, it's actually quite difficult to find people that you kind of resonate with, really. I think that's the key thing, is trying to find someone that's talking in your language, in the way that you understand things, and saying things that you actually kind of agree with, I guess, to a certain degree, really. So just reading some more. Catherine saying she met a small child with his parents in the woods. Yeah, what a great thing to do. That's one of the things I used to quite enjoy in my childhood, really. Of course, it was before the internet and techie things, but, given a football, told to run off, go and play around the flats with a football, that type of thing, and then off into the woods with, we used to go into the woods with knives and air rifles and all sorts of things, and just kind of shoot trees and mess about and dig holes and all sorts of stuff. But it was all kind of wholesome things. You'd come back completely tired out with a group of friends. But, obviously these days things are slightly different. But again, learning or teaching children about grounding, just hugging a tree or touching the floor, touching energy, or just gardening, even if you put your hands in a pot, plant some small plants and things, and get the children to water them every few days, and just see the plants sort of flourish and grow. These things are quite magical when you're quite small, and they're probably things that we take for granted from a kind of adult perspective. You forget that when you were really small, the things that you understand now as an adult, you didn't really understand when you were a small child. And of course, you see parents and adults doing things, but again, it's working out why they're doing those things, and does it interest you, really? So Simi's talking about spiritual attacks that she suffered with when I was very little. Yeah, well, this is the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, there are children that are going to be attacked as well. One of the things that becomes very apparent in this work that we do, which we do 7 days a week, every day. Obviously, so I'm doing it with Jane and obviously our side of things, and then we're also running the Spirit Release Academy, teaching practitioners. But one of the things you start to become aware of is that there is this negative aspect that is continually in your space, and it's continually watching, and it's continually around you, really. And as soon as they get like a foothold and a gap, they do come in, and they will kind of try to create some sort of chaos in your life in different ways. And obviously we can talk about that, but we're trying to keep this on a kind of positive perspective around children, really, but trying to do magical things with children, talking about fairies in the garden, sprinkling dust in the garden, looking at some of the animals. I know that for us, when my daughter Barney brings her grandson, he's quite keen. He runs off to the pond. He wants to look at the frogs and he wants to look at slugs and all of the kind of bugs and things that live around a pond. He's sort of fascinated by those sorts of things. He's not particularly interested in staying inside, but he wants to be outside. And if you lift a stone and there's a frog, it's like kind of, you've just given him a gold bar, basically. So this is that kind of magical world that we can kind of create for children. Again, we probably tend to forget about to a certain degree. Okay. I think from my perspective, that probably brings this week's Chen podcast to an end. I'll get to listen to it a bit later and see what Chen did have to say, which will be interesting. So thanks to you guys for joining it, and thanks to anyone that joins in catch-up. Again, pop your comments in the Facebook posts. We're very keen to see what you guys think and what people want to listen to. We sit down and kind of come up with ideas on content. Generally, Chen tells us really what we're going to talk about, but effectively there's things that you're interested in and there's things that you'd like us to talk about or you'd like Chen to talk about, then just pop some comments on social media, tag us obviously, and then we'll do our best to bring that into the conversations at some point in the way that we do things. So I think from my perspective, we've got a course starts next week or week after. It's a protection course, 6 weeks, if you're interested in spiritual protection, that kind of stuff. Lots of people have been through and done that course. And again, we've got a new one starting. I think it's in a couple of weeks. I'm sure Jane from downstairs will tell me anyway. But if you go to our website under events, the course dates and things are there, so you can take a read, see what you think. And hopefully I will catch you guys again next week, no doubt. Okay, so I'll say goodbye and enjoy it on the catch-up for those that are coming in afterwards.